Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another toxic edition of the Gold Standard with Alan Mosley. And here's your host, Alan Mosley.
I feel like we've gotten off on the wrong foot today, Blake.
Why?
Because it's a toxic edition of the... No, that's fine. That's fine. I'm perfectly good with that. Guys, welcome back to the Gold Standard. I am your host, Alan Mosley. You can follow us on social media, which is facebook.com/TGS Alan Mosley, which, by the way, is where this episode will be streaming at 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern Time on Wednesday, which is today.
Good.
So it is recorded ahead of time, but not so far ahead of time that like a whole nother news cycle has gone and we're way late.
Well, that's good. That's
we're
good.
We're in. Yeah. Because we used to be a little, like we used to be like a 5-day thing.
Yeah.
Now it's like same day service.
Yeah, same day stuff, which is really cool. Thanks to all of this wonderful technology. Look at this. Oh, that's the wrong switch.
that's just my desktop.
Yeah, that's just your laptop. See this? I say, look at all this wonderful technology, and I go to mess it up. There we go. Now all this wonderful technology. See, I'll take Facebook off. There we are. And you can see this here, but I know you don't understand what you're looking at, so whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there you go. Twitter is at Alan and Mosley, but you don't have to do any of that. You can just go to our website, which is thegoldstandardpodcast.com.
That's right.
Also, if you want to support the show, and I know you do.
You do. Please.
You go to patreon.com/TGS Alan Mosley. There's different tiers that you can support the show. Or you could just do a one-time donation at thegoldstandardpodcast.com.
Sure.
And click the donate link, and you type 9999999, and you hit enter. I think you have to put in your card information. This isn't a pledge. This is an actual donation. You know, it's funny. I'm gonna tell on myself here for a second.
Okay.
So I used to be the vice president of a nonprofit.
Awesome.
And they were looking at doing this really big project where they were going to renovate this theater. Mm-hmm. Like it was an old-timey, like back when theaters were really nice and it had like the one monster screen. This was like, we're talking like the 1930s. Yeah. And they were going to renovate this theater and turn it into like a performance center, right? Yeah. Okay. And I mean, this is like a $1.5 million project type of a thing. And somebody had suggested to them, because they were a relatively small nonprofit, they had said, you should take pledges from people so that they don't feel like they have to write you a check right now. Yeah. But you get pledges, and then when your pledges total a certain amount of money and people can see, oh, this is taken off, this is legitimate, then more different entities will be willing to work with you. Right. That didn't work.
Of course not. Because you can't bank on a pledge, man. I mean,
you can't bank on a pledge. Well, it was twofold. Well, hold on, it was threefold. One, it was a shitty idea. It didn't take off at all. It didn't take off at all. That was number one. Yeah. Number two, the pledge idea didn't work because, I mean, to even operate a fundraiser of that magnitude, you have to have at least some resources. Yeah. So if you don't at least have some people willing to go ahead and put the money down, then you really don't have any operating capital at all. No. So that's number two.
Takes money to raise money, man.
And then number three, when the initial deadline came along of, okay, our benchmark is to raise X amount of money, we want to start like collecting these pledges, then a lot of people backed out.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we don't collect pledges.
No, we don't collect
here at the
pledges.
Gold Standard. We actually want the hard cash or crypto or
crypto
or or goats perhaps.
Yeah, sure.
We deal in those as well. So this past weekend was Memorial Day.
Oh boy.
Wait, what does that mean?
Oh, it's just another holiday.
Just yeah.
I mean, it's I don't really have too many people in my family to to remember for that reason. Yeah. So,
well, they're dead. So
well, yeah, they don't
actually appreciate it because they're not here.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. I know that's really dark, but I'm that way about funerals.
You are?
Like, I don't really care about what's done at a funeral because they're not here.
No.
To appreciate it. You're only really doing it for their next of kin who are sad. Yeah. But I'll just take them out for a drink or something. Like
You ever been to the party that they have after funerals?
The party after funerals?
Yeah, it's like some people have like these big parties after funerals. It's like they're all celebrating in something. I was like, what, do they hate the person that died?
That's what I want. No, that's what I want. If I died today, I would expect you to have a big party in here and like have a cardboard cutout of me sitting on the chair right here. But actually,
I'm all about the cardboard cutout, man. I think that's a great idea.
But don't make it be me. Make it look like dead me. So it's like Weekend at Bernie's, and I'm like in the chair like this. I would say use the real me, but you might get in legal trouble for that.
That'd be kind of gross.
So I don't know. Yeah, I'd have to be proper, and it's hot outside.
Yeah,
that
would smell good. Yeah.
This
is already off the rails.
Yeah, what are we talking about today? So with it having been Memorial Day,
yes.
After the break, we're going to talk about the U.S. Army's Twitter. This is the only time you're going to see the U.S. Army's Twitter on this program. They did what is possibly the biggest self-own in the history of Twitter.
It probably shouldn't have done it.
I'm going to set the stage, and then we're going to go to the break.
Okay.
U.S. Army said over the weekend, "How has serving impacted you?"
Oh, boy.
We're going to talk about all the ways that serving impacted their respondents right after this break. Hey, did you see the playoff games last weekend?
Oh, you're into the sports ball game.
Sports Ball with Mike Meharry and Alan Mosley. SportsBallPodcast.com.
Sports ball is not a libertarian sports show. It's a sports show done by a couple of libertarians.
For when you need your bread and circuses.
Your ad could be playing right now, reaching thousands of potential customers. Sadly, it's not, but it could be. Find out how to be an advertised sponsor for The Gold Standard with Alan Mosley. Email us at tgsalanmosley@gmail.com.
You're back.
Literally just now while we were waiting during the commercial, I had a thought pop into my mind that,
Is that a good thing?
There's going to be people that are going to hear this segment and they're going to say, well, you didn't serve. You have no right to say whatever you're saying.
But you don't have to. Just look at the thread.
But, well, first of all, yeah, we're going to get there. But here's the thing, though. This just popped into my head. So for all of you people out there who say that, well, you didn't serve, you don't know, like, you know what you sound like when you say that?
What?
You sound like the women that say, well, you don't have a uterus, you don't have any say. Is that not the same thing?
Yeah, I mean,
it's the same thing, right?
Yeah.
It's just the point being is that one of those camps is ideologically one way, and they would make fun of the other.
Yeah.
But they both do it.
Yeah.
It's just about their own little sacred cow, but they both do it.
Right.
Yeah. We'll
I
get
agree.
to that in a second.
We'll get to
So take a look at this. How has serving impacted you? Now, they've got some follow-up tweets here that we're not going to actually read, where they basically say, we hear you, blah, 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 blah. But the U.S. Army posted, they had like this story of this kid who, threw his life away to join the Army because he was retarded. And then they said, how has serving impacted you? Now, do you know what they were expecting? They were expecting, like, people to, hoorah,
It's the greatest
honor,
experience of my
glory,
life. Yeah.
changed my life for the better, yada, yada, yada. We remember, we love our troops, yada, yada, yada.
Blah, blah.
No.
No.
Let's just read, and this is not pre-prepared. I'm literally just going to read a sample straight from their Twitter. These are not ones I picked out ahead of time. This person says, my children's father used his military leave to periodically return to town to try to kill me and cause other havoc. He was never held accountable. One time he took our son and I haven't seen him since. I'm sure he's okay with his service. I'm still traumatized. Thanks.
Wow. Wow.
I've only seen my father smile in pictures. I was a baby when he went to Vietnam. The things he saw and did there broke him inside. There was no joy in life for him anymore. He finally shot himself in his study one afternoon. I found him when I came home. I was 8.
Nice.
Uncle was drafted into Vietnam, served for 2 months, and began using heroin to deal with killing people. He was exposed to Agent Orange, was dishonorably discharged, and died from an overdose in 81. He was 28.
Holy mackerel.
My dad, a World War II Purple Heart veteran. This is a good one because a lot of people are like, oh, but World War II, that's totally justified. World War II Purple Heart veteran began reliving combat experiences when he was given pain medication towards the end of his battle with cancer. He had rarely spoken about what he saw and did in Europe, but the anguish he felt was immense over 5 decades later.
Jeez.
This guy, and this comes from someone personally. Extreme mood swings due to PTSD, constant pain in my knees and back, inability to tell the love of my life how I feel, nagging wanting to blow my head off daily.
Jeez.
Oh, I'm going to go on for a little bit, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Because
Indulge.
People need to hear this stuff.
Yeah.
I was sexually assaulted and discharged at Madigan Army Hospital when I reported what happened. My DD-214 was impacted. I was not awarded full benefits. I lived in my car, struggled with suicide attempts and no self-worth. Now I'm fighting PTSD claim. Wow. My mom worked for the VA for over 2 decades as a psych nurse and was strangled by a patient who wasn't crazy enough to stay on the ward. She was a quadriplegic toward the end and is dead now.
God.
Severe depression and anxiety, some good friends and memories, but how to deal with toxic leadership.
Jeez.
100-year anniversary of World War I, I researched my family tree. 3 great uncles went to Europe. 1 never returned. 1 came back, suicided 2 years later. The 3rd became an alcoholic. People are not emotionally equipped to witness and become murderers. Now, you start saying stuff like that, you get the oorah troops people upset. You start calling them murderers. But hey, I'm just saying.
Well, the overwhelming responses on this page look like they're mostly negative. I mean, mostly lives that have been horribly impacted by their service.
Yeah. I mean,
these people are soldiers. This is not, this is not just third party making stuff up or anti-war people making things up. These are actual soldiers reporting their actual experiences with their life after the service. I mean, that's hard, man. It seems to me like we have to have a lot more effort put into rehabilitating these folks and helping them after the fact. That's a different story.
No, we don't. We need to not send them.
No, I mean, I agree.
Well, so there's layers to this onion. So the first layer is they're already affected.
Yeah.
And they're suffering.
Yeah.
And their friends and family in their community should take care of them.
Yeah.
Taxpayers shouldn't do anything because
that's what I mean by we. I don't mean taxpayers.
The next layer of the onion is they shouldn't be getting sent overseas to fight and die in bankers' wars.
Yeah.
For the elite's interests that serve no security to the average American. They're not fighting for our freedoms. They're not fighting for our liberty.
They're fighting for money.
The next layer of the onion is you, the person, don't join the fucking military. You, the individual. So it always, because we're about personal responsibility around here, right?
Yeah.
And though we sympathize with people, and by the way, to all the neckbeard libertarians out there, like I love a good meme as much as the next person, and I say some inflammatory things on this program on purpose, obviously. But here's the thing, though. You can sympathize with someone who is ill-affected while also holding the opinion of, well, they shouldn't have done what they did.
Right.
If I see someone who commits suicide because they killed a bunch of babies over in Iraq, I can say, well, it's their fault. They pulled the trigger. They signed the enlistment form.
Right.
But I can also sympathize with they're messed up.
Yeah.
And they need help.
Yeah.
The point being is a lot of people live in this black and white mentality where I can't sympathize with someone because they did something I don't like. So therefore they're beneath empathy.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. No. You can sympathize with someone because we all make mistakes.
Yeah.
And I don't want to see people suffer.
That's
if you are an empathic human being, you don't want to see people suffer.
That's right.
So I feel bad for all of these people because they suffer, and I hope they get the help that they deserve. They need.
Yeah.
But I also can say you shouldn't have signed on because and for anybody out there that might be listening today, if you're a young person, if you're 18, you're whatever, read this thread before you go down to the recruiting office. This is what it is.
Yeah.
This is what it is. My father served in World War II overseas, an African-American soldier sent to the colored bases. All I know, my mother said he was never the same when he came home, and when I was 5, he was committed to an institution. I remember us taking long rides to see him on Sundays. I was sexually assaulted, fought it in court-martial, and lost. He knows what he did and got away free. The system failed me. Now I suffer from severe anxiety, depression, and PTSD. Here's a young person that actually says, I was thinking about joining. These stories are worrisome. Yeah, no shit, son.
Man.
So Ian, worrisome. That's putting it mildly.
Yeah.
Don't sign up. I haven't seen or heard from my father after his second tour 8+ years ago. He thinks the government is out to kill him and has been off the grid since he got back. Well, some people think that whether they went to overseas or not. But still. Ex-wife went to jail for drug use. Because I had PTSD, the courts found me unfit to have custody of my daughters. They're now adopted by their aunt.
It's just story after story of just tragedy.
Yeah, I mean, we could just do this. We don't have hours, but I mean, we could do this forever. I mean, it just goes and goes and goes.
You have some people that says we are not the enemy. You saw that. Well, no, I mean, technically you're not, but.
Well, depends on who you're asking.
Yeah.
To some people you are. And that's a whole other thing for us to discuss another day. Is that you know what, some people do think of you as the enemy, and you can be haughty about it and just deny it, or you can ask, or you can reflect.
Yeah.
You can take a step back and you can ask yourself, why would anybody see me as the enemy? What have I done? What have the people I've signed up with done that would cast me in that light? Yeah. And if you look at some of the things, some of the realities of war and some of the realities of especially the United States empire, and you say, that's not something, that's not me. No. I didn't do that. I don't want to be associated with that. Well, then don't fucking sign up to join the military. Don't be a part of the enforcement wing of the state so that you don't become party to the state. Like, look, I don't blame taxpayers and say, hey, you're funding baby killers, because they have to. It's not, taxes are not voluntary. If they don't, they'll just come kill you and take your stuff. Right. So, like, look, it is a pragmatic thing to go along, to get along there, because you got a life to live. Yeah. You got a family. You got to do it. You got to do it. But you ain't got it, unless you're drafted, you ain't got to. And if you're drafted, what you should do is be a conscientious objector, and you should say, I'm not going. And actually, we kind of want to end that segment right there with who we should be remembering on Memorial Day is the draft dodgers. Yeah. That's who we should be remembering on Memorial Day. We should. The people who said, I'm not going to go.
Card burners. Yeah.
And everybody, so obviously a famous one, Muhammad Ali. That's a famous, because he's a celebrity. And so obviously people are going to, there's lots of people who don't have the celebrity of Muhammad Ali who did the same thing. Yeah. And good on them for saying, no, I'm not taking part in this. But just use him as an example, as somebody who had a lot to lose, by the way. Yeah. It's worth mentioning people who have a lot to lose. And I'm not saying that just because you're poor or dispossessed, that means you matter less. I'm not saying that. But I am saying it is definitely worth mentioning that when someone is a wealthy person, someone has a successful career or whatever, and they say, no, I'm not taking part in this, that is certainly notable, because they had a lot to lose, but they did it anyway. Right. I'm a historian. We talk about history a lot on this program. You think of founding fathers during the American Revolution. If you were a founding father, you were probably someone who was a landowner. You probably were among the wealthier people in the States. Yeah. When you sign the Declaration of Independence and your name is on that, and you send it to Britain, you have a lot to lose, my friend.
You sure do.
I mean, starting with, that's
think
what you
about how
to
much.
lose.
I mean, that was an incredibly bold thing to do.
So I have all the respect in the world for the people who turn their backs to this, who don't want to become another story on this wall. But it's,
man, that's deep.
This has been a dark segment, but you know what? It's in some ways it makes me happy, because it gives us, it shines some light on the horror, and it shows us that there are people out there that I'm not saying all these people are libertarians, and they're almost certainly not. Right. But they see it. Like, whether it was from personal horrible experience or not, they see the warfare state for what it is.
And they all regret their decision.
And they've learned now to not be a part of it. Yeah. And we can hope, while I don't want to hear these horrible stories, we can hope that more and more people hear them and don't, even if they're not ideologically in our camp, they at the very least decide, no, I'm going to pass on the military. So with that, we're going to take a quick break. And after the break, we're going to talk about something that, instead of getting our blood boiling because it's sad, it's going to get our blood boiling because we're angry.
Okay.
Yes. We'll be right back.
Here we go.
Have you ever been talking politics with a friend and told, if you don't like it here, you should just move to Somalia?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, from the sandy beaches of Mogadishu, Sherry and I bring you Postcards from Somalia, one of the newer products of Little Elm Productions, where we take on all of the fallacies of the people who say, if you don't like it, you can just get out. Your ad could be playing right now, reaching thousands of potential customers. Sadly, it's not, but it could be. Find out how to be an advertised sponsor for The Gold Standard with Alan Mosley. Email us at tgsalanmosley@gmail.com.
You're back.
Yeah, I mean, there's thousands and thousands of those posts. So
That's hard to
we're
believe. It just goes on forever and ever. You can scroll until your head falls off.
But let me tell you something. I'm going to show you a meme from our friends at the other 3%.
Okay.
This is really good for our final segment today.
All right, you ready?
Yeah. 1 in 4 Americans thinks the sun goes around the earth, survey says. To which they followed with, just think, their vote counts just as much as yours. Hashtag democracy is cancer.
It's like flat.
Democracy is cancer, my friends. Make sure you go and visit at the other 3% on Facebook. Really awesome page. And it's not just memes, it's articles, it's podcasts such as The Gold Standard with Alan Mosley. Hint, hint, wink, wink. So we really appreciate their support, and so we're going to keep showing them off. Also, remember our friends at the Status Quo.
Yeah.
The Status Quo, Nick and Matt, who and this would have been a great one. I'm gonna tell Nick he's gonna come on one day with me.
Yeah.
Because they talk a lot about anti-war, about foreign policy. So that was right in their wheelhouse right there. So make sure you check out.
I think this meme's interesting because when we first started talking back before I really started getting into libertarianism, and I'm still a recovering conservative, I'll always say that, but it's been a big eye opener, the word democracy. I always thought the word democracy meant America, meant that's what our system is built on, and that is the ultimate level of fairness until, well, you give them the analogy. You've said that to me before, and I think that people need to hear that over and over again because, mob rule is not fairness by any means.
Exactly. So the statusquo.net, I pulled that up just now. Statusquo.net is where you can find their site. So we're actually going to turn our attentions to our friends over at the 10th Amendment Center. They had a blog post, I guess just yesterday. This is pretty fresh. It's talking about facial recognition in Michigan, where police are using facial recognition technology.
See, now I'm all confused.
There you go.
Let me switch this back.
Yeah, we're all back. There you go. So a bill introduced in the Michigan Senate would ban law enforcement use of facial recognition technology in the state. The proposed law would not only help protect privacy in Michigan, but it would also hinder one aspect of the federal surveillance state. Senator Peter Lucido, Republican, introduced Senate Bill 342 on May 22nd. The legislation would prohibit law enforcement officials from obtaining, accessing, or using any facial recognition technology, along with any information gathered from such technology. Any information obtained in violation of the law would be inadmissible in court, quote, as if the evidence, arrest warrant, or search warrant was obtained in violation of Amendment 4 of the Constitution of the United States and Section 11, Article 1 of the State Constitution of 1963.
Yeah.
In effect, the passage of SB 342 would impose a total ban on the use of facial recognition technology by Michigan law enforcement. That's great news.
That is good news.
We really hope that works out. I mean, that's good on them. Good on them to introduce that bill. We'll keep tabs on it.
I hope it works, man, because I have this terrible feeling that no matter what bill you pass, that's going to happen anyway.
But here's the thing. The reason why we're bringing that up today is, in the 10th Amendment Center, we've talked about this. We had on Michael Bolton just a few weeks ago, and we talked about how, since they talk about more like of a they deal more in the mainstream than we do.
Right.
Like, we're talking to the crazy radicals and extremists on this program. He's talking to people who theoretically they would love liberty and they would support the Constitution. I don't care about the Constitution, but they do. And so you think of all the 3%ers and all the conservatives and stuff, like, oh, that's what they're supposed to be about, right?
Yeah.
Let's take a gander at some of the comments. This is on the 10th Amendment Center's page. This is at 10th Amendment Center on Facebook. Leo Perk here says, criminals are entitled to privacy when wandering the streets. You know, there's a guy.
How does a camera know the difference between a criminal and a regular person?
There's a guy here who's actually labeled as a top fan of the 10th Amendment Center. His name is Alan Mosley.
Okay.
He says, Leo Perk, you'd fit right in Washington Swamp.
That's a good one, man.
So right here, this person, Scholler Waterman, says, don't ban it. Only criminals want this banned. 10th Amendment Center said that's exactly what the British would have said to Adams, Hancock, and Young. Some guy named Alan Mosley said, only criminals want this banned.
Yeah.
Don Stoeffler, and I'm calling all these people out by name
go
because
ahead, man.
they can eat a dick. Don Stoeffler, isn't this the same state that put a Muslim in Congress? Yeah. Alan Mosley says, as opposed to all the raging authoritarians and socialists that every state's putting into Congress?
Yeah.
And he actually had the nerve to respond back to me and said, but they're still not Muslims. So, just so that you're wondering at home, Don is totally fine with having the boot shoved all the way down his throat as long as it's not a Muslim doing it. Piece of shit. And Alan Mosley did say, as long as it's not Muslims that legislate away your natural rights and herd you into the boxcar, it's all good, huh?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
I remember the Nazis were not Muslims.
I mean, these people are so just wow. Linda Ferris here says, why protect criminals and terrorists and drug dealers? Well, why hold liberty as a primary political virtue? I don't know. Why would we do that?
How does the camera not know that, like I said, how's the camera discern if you're a good guy or a bad guy, right? You ever seen in China where they have that system? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Where like the entire freaking nation is under video surveillance and like you have
they have the social credit system.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's totally
I
coming.
mean, is that what people want here?
This person, Troy Stiles says, bad for native-born U.S. citizens, but good for the infiltrators from the Middle East. And I say, what about the infiltrators from the lower 48 who vote annually to curtail your liberty while advancing socialism and collectivism?
Exactly.
But, don't worry about them.
Yeah, they're no threat to you.
Ripton here says, what about we all just wear burqas, ha-ha? And then I say, well, that's it. If that's your wish, you should. If you were a free American, you would do what you wish as long as you didn't injure others.
That's right.
But again, these people think that they're liberty-loving conservatives, or they're not.
No.
Sonny Sykes says, can't go around identifying the Muslim terrorists now, can we? The Muslim terrorists pose me no risk of injury. The authoritarian monsters at home and the chattel slaves like you that support them pose me a far, far greater risk.
Right.
And Sonny, by the way, replies to me and says, you're so lost you can't even be found. Terrorists have no rights. Rights are natural to man, but you clearly know nothing about liberty or the philosophy of the founding generation.
Why do you waste your time with these people?
Because they need to be destroyed. That's why. This is a good one. Pardon my language here. I'm really sorry. Bruce Sego here says, how are we going to keep track of the GD Islamists and the Somalis then? The Somalis. How are we going to keep track of the Somalis who are all out to get us? Really? The Somalis. So I say to him, Somalis pose no threat to you. Only your authorian nightmare at home does.
Yeah.
The Somalis. That's a good one. How are we going to keep track of the Somalis?
Yeah.
Ben Ong says, to help the criminals hide their identity like themselves. We know the criminal's identity. You can find them on all the .gov websites.
It's a lie. You're all being told a lie. The criminals are going to get you. The terrorists are everywhere.
Now,
the truth is, they're not.
Now,
you just believe that because that's what the media shoves down your throat every day, and that's what your rulers are constantly telling you. But that's not the case. If I walk down the street right now, how many terrorists am I walking across? 0. There's no terrorists down the road. There aren't any.
Well, there's the ones wearing like blue uniforms and stuff. They are, but other than them. Now this is one that's not from an abhorrent racist, like frankly several of the ones on this thread. Wayne Shaw here says, while in general I would agree with such legislation, however, an outright ban is not necessarily a good thing. Use in direct investigation is a great tool and could be used on site with a warrant citing probable cause. Although it seems a bit odd, this support in one of the most populous Middle Eastern communities, just a thought. Now, I reply, and I'm not trying to be mean to Wayne, I reply conscientiously. Unfortunately, Wayne, history is crystal clear that if you give any power to government under any pretense, it will be expanded and abused.
Yeah.
This is why Wayne's comment doesn't jive. It's because in Wayne's mind, he still works in a world where, but if the rule says it's only for X, Y, and Z, government wouldn't lie to us. If they say they're only going to use it to get the baddies, that's what they'll do. No, history is crystal clear that that is not the case. John Tipton Masterson says, why hinder public safety officials from doing their job? To which I say, why give up liberty for security? Trevor Lambert says, this will allow more Muslims into the state and make it impossible to hunt down terrorists. Muslims are creating no-go zones in major cities in Michigan. Alan says, too bad the states are already full of your homegrown white Christian Americans who vote to limit your freedom every election and would never lift a finger to protect you. I'm trying to trigger the right-wingers.
Yeah.
Rick Fortenberry, which, by the way, I just want to point out, most of these people are boomers, by the way. Most of these comments are from boomers. I know you're surprised. This one's from a boomer actually wearing a MAGA hat who says, why, so your police can't find criminals? Raffle, question mark? Alan says, police are the criminals. He tells me to grow up, and I tell him that's a nice boomerism. I'm gonna read you one more.
Boomerism.
Yeah, boomerism.
You need to make a T-shirt that says boomerism.
Nice,
and has
nice,
a description
nice
of
boomerism. Douglas Ladner says the state of Michigan is worried about facial recognition when they have 1 million sand pigs in their state. That's totally not racist, but let's continue. I say, Douglas, in 2012, 2.5 million people in the state of Michigan voted for Obama despite his drone war that terrorized millions and included the extrajudicial murders of American citizens without trial. In 2004, 2.3 million people in the state of Michigan voted for George W. Bush despite his flagrantly unconstitutional wars, surveillance, and the ill-fated Patriot Act. Sounds to me like the state of Michigan is run rampant with enemies of liberty. Sucks that they're mostly white middle-class Christians. Ooh, I know. He hasn't replied. I'm sure he's reporting me to Facebook.
Some of the people just can't handle the... See, your rebuttals are actually pretty slick. Every time I try to put something like that on a rebuttal, I just get destroyed, so I don't bother.
Well, there's a word that they don't like you using on the internet anymore that starts with the letter F and ends in ag. That back in my day, you just called them that. That's just what you just called them the word, and that way you moved on with your life.
No.
But no, I'm trying to be slicker. So let me share you a quote. Let me share you a quote with this, because this is all about, at the end of the day, it's all about what people are willing to live with, right?
Yeah.
Like, these people are willing to live with more and more of their liberty going down the toilet because
For the lie of security.
they think for security. Yeah.
Yeah, it's...
Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did and it never will. Find out just what a people will submit to, and you have found exactly the amount of injustice and wrong which will be imposed upon them.
Yeah.
And these will continue until they are resisted with either words or blows or with both. The limits of tyrants are prescribed by the endurance of those whom they oppress.
Yep.
Men may not get all they pay for in this world, but they must pay for all they get.
Yep.
It's Frederick Douglass. That's the kids today would say that is spitting fire. That's quite. I love that.
And how long ago was that written?
I mean, 200.
Yeah.
Well, 160, something like that.
Knowledge is eternal, man.
Men may not get all they pay for in this world, but they must pay for all they get.
That's right.
I like that.
Yeah.
So on that note, I want to end today with one more quote that just kind of sums up democracy is cancer. And democracy is cancer was kind of the theme of the second half of our show today, because here you have people like the 10th Amendment Center that are fighting against things that flagrantly violate your natural rights.
Right.
But here you have the chattel, the slaves lining up to support their God, the state. and fight you when you're trying to preserve liberty.
Because they believe that the state is going to give them security.
Do not blame Caesar. Blame the people of Rome who have so enthusiastically acclaimed and adored him and rejoiced in their loss of freedom and danced in his path and gave him triumphal processions. Blame the people who hail him when he speaks in the forum of the new, wonderful, good society for which shall now be Rome. Interpreted to mean more money, more ease, more security, more living fatly at the expense of the industrious. That could have come straight out of Atlas Shrugged.
Yeah.
It could have, but it didn't. That was written around 63 BC by Cicero. You want to talk about being ahead of your time.
Knowledge is
Try
eternal.
being a couple of millennia ahead of your time.
Oh, yeah. Replace the word Rome with USA.
I mean, and yeah, that quote could be in the foreword of a book on politics or economics in 2019, right now. Yes,
right there.
100%. I love it. That's one of my favorites. Boy, we got, so check out today. We got the U.S. Army's Twitter, but we also had the 10th Amendment Center.
Yeah.
We had people talking about how the state is awful, but we also had people talking about how they want the state to give it to them up the ass.
Yep.
And then we had Frederick Douglass and Cicero
Yep.
on today's program. That's
Extreme
good.
smartness and incredible
pretty-
dumbness at the same time.
That's pretty good. That's
Yeah.
pretty good. That's pretty good variety. So thank you so much for listening to another episode. It is facebook.com/TGS Alan Mosley, which is where you can catch these streams live. But we're getting our RSS feed updated if you're one of the podcasting folks, which is iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play,
Right.
And YouTube as well. But you can catch these when they come out on Facebook at our Facebook page, facebook.com/TGS Alan Mosley. Twitter is @Alan and Mosley. You don't have to do any of that. You can just go to our website, which is thegoldstandardpodcast.com, as
right.
well as support the show on our Patreon. Become a patron. Be a real libertarian.
patriot, yeah.
Be a real libertarian and support this show, which is patreon.com/TGS Alan Mosley. And we will see you next week.